Ever catch yourself daydreaming about trading like a pro? You know, pulling off those complex strategies, the kind that, honestly, make you feel like you need a Wall Street whiz and a supercomputer all rolled into one.
It can feel that way, yeah.
Well, today's deep dive might just convince us that those barriers are crumbling. We're diving into a system that claims to democratize automated trading, claims to make those pro-level strategies accessible to, well, anyone.
And the kicker,
Come on.
no coding required. Seriously.
I know, right? I'm definitely intrigued. A little skeptical, sure, but the documentation we're looking at, it promises some really interesting, maybe even game-changing features.
What's really fascinating to me is that this system, it's called Easy Strategy Builder, ESB for short. It tackles one of the biggest hurdles in trading head-on.
Okay, I'm listening.
For years, if you wanted to automate your trading strategies, you had two not-so-great options. Become a coding whiz yourself, or...
shell out a ton of cash to have someone build something custom for you.
Exactly.
And it's not just the cost. It's like you need a computer science degree just to even get started. But ESB, they're saying all that changes now.
Right.
Their documentation calls it a do-it-yourself platform. So now I'm picturing like a virtual Lego set, but for building trading strategies. Instead of snapping plastic bricks together, you're piecing together rules and settings. And something that really stood out to me, no drag-and-drop interfaces.
Yeah, those can be a bit much.
Honestly, they can feel clunky and limiting, too.
I get it. It's like, you know those moments when you just want to tell the computer exactly what to do without having to, like, drag boxes around a screen?
Yes, that's it precisely. So less about visual building blocks and more about having that direct control.
That's a great way to put it. You input your strategy logic, define the parameters, all that good stuff, and ESB takes it from there. And, really importantly, the documentation emphasizes that this approach means ESB isn't tied to a specific broker.
Okay, that's huge.
So whether you're using STP, ECN, or FIFO ESB is designed to be compatible.
That is a big deal for traders who might be tied to a specific platform. No more compatibility nightmares. Let's talk about who this is actually for, though. Is ESB for the seasoned pros, the ones who already have, like, a notebook full of their winning strategies? Or is there room for someone like me, someone still, wrapping their head around the basics?
And that's what I find really interesting. ESB doesn't seem to target just one experience level. Their documentation really emphasizes that it's for both newbies and experienced traders.
Interesting.
Doesn't matter if you're a scalper going for quick profits or if you're someone who likes to play the long-term investments. They've got you covered.
So we're talking about like a multi-level trading platform all under one roof. That's ambitious. What about the learning curve, though? They mentioned replicating complex strategies, even ones from the MQL marketplace, which, if I'm remembering correctly, those are usually code heavy, right?
Yeah, they are.
And they're saying you can do this in just a few clicks, under 10 minutes. That almost sounds too good to be true.
It's definitely one of those claims that make you raise an eyebrow. It's one thing to say it's fast and simple, but it's another thing entirely to actually deliver on that. But think about the potential impact this could have, especially for traders who've been hesitant to automate their strategies because of that technical barrier. Just imagine being able to implement and test sophisticated trading strategies without having to write a single line of code.
That's got to be a game changer for accessibility.
I think so too.
Okay, color me intrigued, but, and I'm just being honest here, still a little bit skeptical.
Healthy skepticism is always a good thing when you're talking about trading.
Exactly. So let's, get down to brass tacks here. The documentation, it boasts about all these features, and I have to say, the sheer variety, it's impressive.
They definitely don't hold back.
But are we talking about real, genuine trading power here? Or just, I don't know, a shiny toolbox full of gadgets that sound a lot fancier than they really are?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And yeah, their documentation doesn't shy away from bold claims.
Not one bit.
One that jumps out immediately is how much they emphasize back testing and optimization.
Music to any trader's ears.
Right.
We've all been there. We come up with a strategy, looks brilliant on paper, then you put it into play in live trading and poof, goes up in smoke.
Been there.
So how does ESB actually handle this whole crucial step of backtesting?
So from what I'm seeing, ESB lets you simulate your strategies using historical market data. Basically, it gives you this like sneak peek into how your strategy would have performed in the past.
Interesting, like a time machine for your trades.
Kind of. And the documentation really stresses the speed of this whole process. They're saying ESB can power through these massive data sets test a bunch of different variations, and do it all crazy fast.
Okay, so speed is definitely a factor here.
It's all about quickly identifying what works and, maybe even more importantly, weeding out the strategies that just don't cut it before they cost you real money.
Right, get those duds out of the way fast. Makes a lot of sense. Speaking of what works and what doesn't, let's talk strategy. The documentation mentions like a whole bunch of different strategies that ESB supports. What, in your opinion, really stood out to you?
Honestly, it's the sheer range. They're trying to cater to like every kind of trading style you can imagine. Everything from like super fast scalping to more long-term approaches like, trend following. You'll find everything in there. You've got your classic price action strategies, but then you've also got some more, let's say, exotic setups.
Exotic, huh? You're going to have to give me some examples.
Sure. So they even mention things like martingale.
Martingale. Now, see, that's one of those terms you hear thrown around a lot in the trading world, but for those who aren't familiar, can you break that down for us a bit?
Absolutely. So martingale, it's essentially at its core a doubling down approach. So say you take a loss on a trade. With martingale, you then double your bet on the next trade. The idea is to recover your previous loss and hopefully get a profit. It can be really effective, but it's also risky. High risk, high reward. If you hit a losing streak, those losses, they can pile up really fast.
So it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not. But what's interesting is that ESB seems to let you test this type of strategy using that historical data. So at least you can get a feel for how it would have performed before, putting your real money on the line.
That's a really good point. It's not just about having access to all these complex strategies, but also about understanding like how those strategies actually perform in the real world. Now, with this much variety, you've got me wondering, does ESB offer any kind of guardrails for risk management? Because it's great to have all these fancy tools, but not everyone's a seasoned risk manager.
I see where you're coming from. And you've hit on a really important aspect of trading. It seems ESB hasn't overlooked this. Their documentation, it specifically mentions advanced modules for risk and money management.
Okay, so they've at least thought about it.
Yeah, and they seem to be focusing on a few key areas, particularly different types of break-even and trailing stop-loss orders.
Can you break those down for us a little bit? I mean, I know stop-loss orders are like essential, but I'm guessing there are some nuances to how they're actually implemented.
You're right. So the basic stop-loss order is basically like an automatic safety net. You set a certain price, and if the market moves against you and hits that price, your position is automatically sold. It limits your losses.
Makes sense.
Now, a trailing stop-loss, this one's a little more interesting. It's more dynamic. Instead of staying at a fixed price, it actually trails behind the price as the market moves in your favor. So it's like it's locking in profits as you go. And from what they're saying, it sounds like ESB offers quite a few options for tweaking these stop-loss mechanisms.
So traders can really fine-tune their risk exposure. That's reassuring, especially for, someone who's just getting started with automated trading. Those safety nets, they can really make a huge difference. Okay, but let's talk about something that really caught my eye. It's this whole thing about a news engine and something called care mode. It honestly sounds a bit futuristic to me. Is ESB like reading the news and then adjusting trades based on what's going on in the world?
That's definitely the impression their documentation gives. This care mode, it seems to be all about monitoring market sentiment, taking into account news-driven volatility.
So it's not just blindly following a set of pre-programmed rules.
It seems not. It sounds like ESB is designed to adapt to changing market conditions.
Okay, now that is next level stuff. But even with the smartest, most advanced system in the world, transparency is key. How does ESB actually keep users in the loop? How does it tell us what's happening with our trades?
Well, that's where their monitoring and notification features come into play. They describe this dedicated monitoring panel, give you a real-time view of your trades, all the details, everything right there. They even have these detailed logs so you can go back and analyze your trades. And for those of us who are always on the go, they also mention customizable mobile alerts.
So no more anxiously sitting at your computer refreshing charts all day long.
Sounds like it.
Okay, I can definitely get behind that. I have to ask, though, you know how the documentation boldly claims that ESB is the world's fastest and easiest method for automated trading?
I saw that, yeah.
Those are some strong words. Have you actually seen anything concrete to suggest that those are more than just, marketing buzzwords?
It's a bold claim, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to definitively say they are the absolute fastest, but their documentation definitely hammers home this idea of speed and efficiency. They're really striving for that streamlined, user-friendly experience.
It'll be interesting to see if they can truly live up to those ambitious claims.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it'll come down to real-world testing and what users experience.
It's always fascinating to see how these claims actually hold up when they're put to the test. Another thing that caught my eye was this whole multi-pair and multi-time frame strategies thing.
It sounds pretty high level.
It does. Can you, I don't know, maybe break that down a bit? What does that actually look like for, the average trader?
Okay, so imagine, let's say you're trading currencies.
Okay, currencies. Got it.
With a multi-pair strategy, you could, for example, trade the Euro-US dollar pair and the US dollar Japanese yen pair at the same time.
So you're looking for opportunities across different markets, but ones that are still connected in some way.
Exactly. Multi-time frame. That takes it even further. So now you can bring different time horizons into the mix. Like one part of your strategy might be laser focused on these short-term charts, like 1-hour charts. You're looking for those quick scalps. But then at the same time, another part of your strategy, it's looking at the bigger picture. Maybe daily charts, even weekly charts, trying to ride those longer-term trends.
So it's like having multiple trading approaches, but they're all working together.
Exactly. It lets you be a lot more nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially, this is trading, there's always risk, but it could even be less risky than just putting all your eggs in one basket.
That makes a lot of sense. I do have to admit, though, seeing all these features, all these functions and indicators, the documentation really goes all in. It makes you wonder how ESB handles information overload.
It's a valid concern.
Because too much of a good thing, especially in trading, can quickly become way too much.
For sure. You don't want to get overwhelmed. And to be honest, the documentation, it doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of their user interface. But they do keep saying how user-friendly it all is.
Yeah.
So it's got to be more than just throwing everything at you all at once.
They've got to have some way of organizing all this stuff.
Right. So maybe they use a really well-structured interface. Maybe they've got customizable dashboards or even, interactive tutorials, something to guide you through everything.
So it's like instead of just being handed this jumbled box of puzzle pieces, you're getting a neatly organized set with like a clear picture to follow.
Exactly. And that's really what we're left wondering. Can ESB actually bridge that gap between having all this sophisticated functionality and still being easy to use?
Because it's one thing to pack in all the bells and whistles.
It's another thing entirely to make them usable.
Especially for us regular traders. And that kind of leads me to a bigger question. If ESB makes it this easy to create and automate these complex strategies, how important is the trader's own knowledge at that point? Like, do you even need to understand the market anymore?
It's the age-old question, right? Tools versus knowledge.
Because there's got to be a risk of becoming too reliant on automation.
Absolutely. Look, tools like ESB, they have the potential to change the game, democratize trading, make it so anyone can use these sophisticated strategies.
I can see that.
But, and this is a big but, you can never replace a trader's understanding of the market, how to manage risk, knowing your own goals.
So it's not just a matter of like plugging in some strategy and then letting the system run on autopilot.
Definitely not. Think of it this way. ESB, it's like this really powerful car. Okay.
I like where this is going.
It can have the fastest engine in the world, the smoothest handling. But you still have to know how to drive.
You've got to know the rules of the road.
Exactly. And you got to be ready for when things don't go according to plan, because that's going to happen.
Great analogy. It's a good reminder that even with the best tools, it all comes back to us. Our knowledge, our judgment.
I couldn't agree more. The traders who will really succeed, it's going to be the ones who find that balance. The ones who can use the power of automation, but never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never stop applying their own knowledge to their trades.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A huge thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Easy Strategy Builder. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has.
I don't know about you, but I'm both excited and, I'll admit, a little cautious about the future this technology could bring. To everyone listening, we hope this deep dive gave you a little peek into the future of trading. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the world of finance. So stay informed, keep asking the right questions, and happy trading, everyone.